say that the brand new Xbox portable console is here. It's the ROG XBOX Ally X. There's a couple of different versions. You can buy a slightly cheaper one that doesn't have the same simplifications, but for all intents and purposes, this is the big day because you finally can play your Xbox games on the go, right? Well, not exactly, and that's what we need to talk about here. This has kind of been like a weird long time coming because obviously Windows PCs and Xbox have kind of been fused into one, and that's almost what this device represents. Because despite the fact that it's actually the Xbox branding, this is very much of Windows 11's PC, and hopefully throughout this video we're going to be showing you absolutely everything that you need to know about this device, and of course gaming on it and see how it performs because there's definitely a lot at stake here. I mean, obviously the Steam Deck has been selling very well for years now, and obviously we have the very original ROG Ally that supersedes, and I got to say that I really did like that because there are definitely a few window features that we wanted changing with it, and that's pretty much what this is all about. This is the fusion between the ROG and the Microsoft to give you a portable gaming console that in theory should fuse the best of Microsoft with the best of Asus essentially. After a few weeks with this thing, taking it to flights, to the gym during my cardio sessions, crazy I know, even gaming sessions with friends' houses, I can tell you what actually works, what doesn't, and who this $1,000 device is actually for. And I mean, the most obvious thing that you can see right off the bat is this kind of thing does look like an Xbox controller that has a screen in it. That was very deliberate, and I'm not like some expert on product IP law, but I would imagine that this kind of shape of the controller grip has been very much like an Xbox thing, and other companies kind of get close to it, but they weren't actually able to use the exact same thing as Xbox and Microsoft. Whereas obviously this is now the IP, so it can actually do that. And I've got to say that does feel like an Xbox controller, and I mean obviously it's bigger, but in terms of the way that it actually physically hits in my hand, that's pretty good. My main worry is that this device, kind of from the initial specification, was going to be the weight of it, especially this version because it's the X, which has a bigger battery and obviously is heavier. Initial impressions is that while it's definitely heavier than some handhelds, it doesn't actually feel that way obtrusive or over the top. It's really quite well balanced actually, which can go a long way to making this comfortable over a prolonged period of time. 715 grams is no joke, but they've done a really good job at disguising the weight with those controller handles essentially. It works really well. And as you would probably expect, there are a few similarities with this versus the previous generation of ROG Ally. It's kind of just been improved if you like with Xbox, so things like sticks and triggers should feel a bit more responsive, but then you also got the same kind of design language that you saw before. This is a 1080p Hertz display. It goes up to 500 nits, and look, I'm not actually sure if it properly supports the HDR, but obviously HDR on handheld is quite difficult anyway, because unless you're hooking it up to a power source, it's kind of just going to drain your battery quicker anyway. But here's the thing, at $1,000, the fact that this doesn't have OLED is kind of mind-boggling. You think, especially if you're going to make this on a scale, hopefully they're going to be doing it, but it would rather be in the realms of affordability, and it's already a quite expensive device, but the actual quality is still very good. In terms of the I/O, if you're going for the X version, one of these here is actually the USB, whereas otherwise they both are USB 3.2 gen. The X version also supports DisplayPort 2.1 over USB-C as well, which is really quite cool. Not really sure if you're ever going to use that, but it has it. We've also got a micro SD slot here, volume rocker, a few different LEDs, and then this power button here also is a fingerprint sensor inside as well, which obviously just helps to keep your device nice and secure. All of the buttons and the sticks do seem to feel quite nice and responsive. I think the only problem that I had here is that the D-pad did feel a bit on the cheaper side, but it wasn't a big enough deal that it was an issue. You have speakers on the left and the right side of the device, and when you turn the device over on the back, you can see you have got another set of buttons here that you obviously can assign in the ROG software to maybe do something Windows specific, or just be a different button for your game or your macro type of things. So there's a fingerprint sensor, as I say, on the top, and essentially is really responsive, which is actually very good. You don't have to actually wait around, just hold the power button down and then it will log you in, which is really nice. This is the main splash screen, and this is going to be one of the changes that you're going to see with this generation, with the Xbox name and branding essentially, rather than what we saw before. So this is what essentially is going to be called full Xbox experience. So when we swipe up, this is going to be for multitasking. You've probably seen this if you press Alt and Tab on a PC before, but this is actually now specific to gaming apps. So there's a desktop mode. You can actually see at the bottom, you got this Windows desktop button. If you hit that, then it's gonna work like a normal PC essentially, which in some instances you might want, especially if you're gonna be using this with the docking system. All of the time that you're out and about and you wanna use this as a handheld, you're gonna wanna leave it in the default Xbox full screen experience mode. Now, when you kind of navigate through the Xbox menus, it's obvious that it's very heavily geared towards Gaming Pass and everything Xbox. But having that said, when you go into your library, you can see that I've installed Civilization 7 here that's actually on Steam. So in theory, all of the games that you install, regardless of the place you get them, should actually pop up here. I'm sure there's going to be a few exceptions, but hopefully given after a couple months of updating essentially, it'll all be here. Once in gaming, you can actually hit the Xbox button here and it's going to give you a few options as well. Again, trying to replicate what you have on the Xbox, where it's easy to navigate and easy to do things without necessarily having to go through the Windows bloat. So here you can actually access your library. You can kind of quickly select applications. You got a few different settings. So let me talk to you guys about how games actually run on this thing. I tested everything from demanding AAA games to indie games, and the results were all over the place. Starting with the hardest test, Doom: The Dark Ages, on default settings at 17 watts, it was about 15 frames per second, which is literally unplayable. Switching to turbo mode at 25 watts helped, but it wasn't night and day at all. You have to drop everything to low settings and use FSR settings, upscaling to performance, to get everything running at a playable 40 to 43 FPS. Because this was a variable refresh rate, it actually feels smoother than what you would expect. Forza Horizon 5 was actually a much better experience. On high settings, it was maintaining a solid 60 frames per cap most of the time. Drop it to a medium and then you can get a 80 to 82 FPS, which is pretty consistent. This is the kind of game that really shows what the Ally X can do when everything is working correctly. Battlefield 6 was actually surprisingly playable. On turbo mode with medium-low settings, it was running well enough for online multiplayer, which is really impressive for a handheld, but you're not going to really be able to compete with competitive mouse and keyboard players. But the fact that it runs at all is really commendable. But when we get to issues, Horizon 5 crashed on me 3 times in one session. Elden Ring would crash on me if I used the volume buttons. Come on, really, the volume buttons. Cyberpunk had command prompt windows mid-game because some background processes decided to update, and this is the Windows experience that I've been dealing with on handhelds for years that's always pissed me off, and it's still there. The Ally X has different power modes that dramatically affect both performance and battery life. Silent mode runs at a 13 watts and is fine for indies and older games. Performance mode is at 17 to 25 watts, is where you'll spend most of your time for modern games. Turbo mode is at 35 watts. When plugged in, it gives you a maximum performance, but murders your battery life completely. The thing is, you're always going to be making compromises. You're going to have to use upscaling that a lot of people hate. You're going to have to drop settings. The fact is, these are heavy games, and you didn't have technology like FSR and frame generation, you wouldn't be able to play them on the go at all. It's really a case of pick your poison. Something that impressed me was the thermals and the acoustics. With the vents located at the top of the device, nothing horrible is coming out of your hands. And in 25 watt modes, it's audible but definitely not a problem. When you hook it up to main power, it gets a little bit louder but nothing really annoying. Here's the fundamental issue here. This is still Windows, and until you get to the point where if you got a specific OS that isn't fully Windows, maybe an Xbox OS that uses Windows kernels and has none of the bloatware, you're not going to get the proper Xbox portable experience. All of the time you're running it as a full Windows PC, you get all of the advantages, the compatibility with everything, ability to install any software, use it as a full computer with a dock, but you also get all of the disadvantages too. People who have never gamed on PC might be thinking that's a lot of steps. A lot is going on, but there's PC gaming there. The sleep behavior is another classic Windows issue. Sometimes it works perfectly. You put it in sleep mid-game, you wake up later, and you're right back where you left off. Other times the game is running, but Windows gets confused, or worse, it doesn't actually sleep, and if you pull it out of your bag to find it cooking hot with fans full blast and your battery is dead. Microsoft has actually talked about how they strip back Windows to get more memory and reduce the overhead. Looking at the benchmark from other reviewers, it doesn't seem like that big of a difference. When you're in full screen Xbox experience, when you're in the Xbox full screen experience, they claim it frees up 2 gig of RAM and reduces the CPU overhead, but the moment you need to do anything outside that sandbox, all of the overhead comes flooding back. Let's talk about battery life, because this is crucial for any handheld. The Ally X has an 80 watts hour battery life, which is substantial, but here's the reality. Playing Doom or Cyberpunk at 25 watts, you're getting 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours if you're lucky. Drop down to silent mode at 13 watts and play some indies like Hollow Knight or Baltoro, you can stretch it to 4 or 5 hours. If you're streaming games through cloud Xbox gaming, the battery life barely moves, but then why are you spending thousands of dollars to stream games your phone can stream? The standby mode is actually pretty decent when it works. You can leave it for a couple of hours and barely lose any battery percentage, but you have to be careful to fully close games before putting it away, or you'll have the overheating issue that I mentioned earlier. That brings us to the elephant in the room. This thing costs $1,000. The base model is $600, which is more reasonable, but still steep. For $1,000, you can actually buy a Steam Deck OLED or a Switch OLED and still have money left over. You could get a decent laptop with 4060 that does everything that this does and more. So who is this for? If you're someone who travels consistently for work, has money to burn, wants to play your PC library on flights, maybe this does make sense. If you're deep into the Xbox ecosystem with hundreds of Play Anywhere titles in Xbox Gaming Pass, portability is your #1 priority, maybe. For anyone else, there's better options, to be honest. The flexibility is there, being able to play games from any store, use this as a full PC, stream from your Xbox or cloud. The improvements to the Windows gaming experience are real, but for the price, with the issues, without OLED, it's a tough sell. Compared to the Steam Deck, the Ally X is more powerful but less polished. The Steam Deck's Steam OS is built for handhelds from the ground up. It just works. The Ally X can run more games and run them better, but you'll spend way more time fighting with the Windows to get there, and at twice the price, that's hardly justifiable. Against something like the Legion Go or their MSI Claw is more competitive. They all have similar Windows struggle and similar price points, similar performance tiers. The Ally X does have better ergonomics with those controller grips, but they all are in the same boat when it comes to fundamental Windows issues. To be honest here, the real competitor might be actual gaming laptops. For the same money, you can get something dedicated with graphics, a bigger screen, and a real keyboard. Sure, it's less portable, but it's way more versatile. Look, when this thing works, it's super impressive. Playing AA games on a handheld that feels like an Xbox controller is genuinely cool. The performance ceiling is definitely there. The Xbox Play Anywhere integration with over 1,000 compatible titles is very smooth. The feeling of the handheld is way better than any Windows handheld that I've ever tried, but the Windows is still Windows. The price is still the price, and those crashes and quirks are still there as well. After a couple weeks with it, the Xbox Alley feels like impressive text, but it's just held back by software that wasn't designed for what it's trying to be. The price point does not match the actual experience. The Alley is a glimpse at what gaming handheld could be, but it's not quite there yet. If you're considering getting this, I would say maybe wait for some software updates, wait for the price to drop, wait for Microsoft to figure out what this thing really is trying to be. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. What do you think of the Xbox Ally X? Is it flexibility worth the Windows headaches? Are you willing to pay premium for that extra performance? Drop it in the comments below. Smash the like button if you found this helpful. Get subscribed for more hardware reviews. And if you want to catch me struggling with Windows crashes live, come find me on Twitch. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay alpha.